Hi, everyone. This is Cathy Moretsky again, and we are here again at my house. And I wanted to continue talking about what we started to talk about last week, which is how to help yourself with your negative feelings during this time. During the coronavirus is everywhere, and I know that last week I shared about how I was feeling just kind of blah, kind of down, and just and this week, it's a little bit different, but the same kind of negative feeling of just feeling kind of bored. And not exactly bored, just losing interest with what I have to do every day. Hearing myself complain about thinking I've got to make dinner. What am I going to make for dinner? I have to make dinner every night of the week. And just feeling like I'm stuck at home. Even going to the store is stressful. I, it's not enjoyable anymore. Feeling worried about family members, and you just worried about friends, family losing jobs, or lots of negative thoughts. You can tell, and so I wanted to share more about. We started talking about twisted, distorted thinking, that our feelings determine our thoughts, and if we can take the time to figure out what we're feeling, identify those feelings, whether it's anger, anxiety, fear, sadness, lots of different feelings. If we can identify what we're feeling and then figure out, okay, what am I thinking? What are my thoughts behind those feelings? If we've got to really think about that and strive for self-awareness, and this is how we can help ourselves take control of that. We can change our bad moods, our negative moods, because we can control our happiness level. Last week we talked about two types of twisted thinking. We talked about all or nothing thinking, which is it's when you see things in black and white and no in between. And when something falls short of being perfect, then you see it as a total failure. Or worse, you can start to think that you failed or that you're a failure. And that's just that black and white, all or nothing thinking that it can easily send you in a tailspin. Downward spiral. And we talked about overgeneralization, when we see one single negative event as this never-ending pattern in our lives of where things are always going to be bad for us. Something never works out. And those are the first two types of twisted thinking that we talked about. What I wanted to talk about today is another one. The third one is when we have a mental filter. Okay, we've got this filter in our brain that, again, we focus on this one single negative detail, and we focus on it exclusively. That's all we can think about, nothing positive. It's like when you drop that ink into a beaker of water and the whole glass of water turns black and inky. And that is what it's like when we are thinking, have this mental filter, and we're just focused on this one negative element, one detail. And the other one, the fourth one I wanted to talk about today, is when we discount the positive. And this is when we reject those positive experiences by saying, oh, well, that doesn't really count. You can tell yourself that, yeah, I did it, but it wasn't good enough. I could have done a better job, or anyone could have done that. Anyone could have done as well. And that type of thinking just really takes the joy out of life. and it just makes us feel inadequate and unrewarded. And especially when life is so hard right now and challenging, and there's just a lot of change and uncertainty, we need to take every little positive thing that happens during the day, or any positive comment that is made towards us, and really let that sink in, and really let ourselves believe it. That positive compliment or positive thing that happened, however small it may be. It's so often so hard for us to hear ourselves and take the time and stop and identify what's going wrong. Why am I having such a bad day? What are my thoughts? And so ask whoever your social distancing partner is, be it your husband, your wife, your roommate, ask them to listen for these types of distorted thinking that are coming out of your mouth, and to bring them to your attention. Ask them to say, "Can you hear yourself? Let me repeat back to you what you just said." And it's kind of shocking, but we have a hard time seeing ourselves, and but there's a reason we're feeling these negative feelings. It's because we're thinking in a distorted, unrealistic way. So, and I want to encourage you to keep journaling and keep writing maybe 3 good things that happen to you every day, be it how they may be very small. But 3 good things that happen to you during the day, and keep working on identifying your negative moods, because you are in charge. I am too. We are in charge of our happiness, and that's never been as important as it is during this time of scary uncertainty. I want to share a story from the Bible in Luke chapter 8, because this just really encouraged me, and I hope it will encourage you as well. There's a story of a woman who had been bleeding for 12 years, and her doctors could not cure her. She had spent all of her money trying to find a remedy, a cure, trying to search for healing. And it sounds like a very similar story to what's going on in our world with COVID-19. And she had been social distancing for 12 years. Israel had this law where if you had a contagious disease, you had to separate yourself from the public, from other people, or you had to call out, unclean, unclean. And so, honestly, before before this COVID-19 in our world, that's become our reality, I was thinking that's such a harsh treatment of people, and such an awful way to live. But I understand it better now, because we're all social distancing. We really shouldn't be within 6 feet of each other, and we always need to wear our masks. But she knew how it felt, and also she was worried about her finances, like a lot of us are, worried about keeping our jobs. We don't want to lose our jobs. Worried about our business is going to stay afloat. What's the future going to hold? And so she was lonely. She'd been social distancing for 12 years. She was broke, worried about her finances, and she was sick. There was not a cure. And this story in chapter 8, Luke, verse 44, says that she had the courage to leave her isolation, and she had heard about Jesus, heard that he was healing other people. So she took it upon herself to try maybe one last time for healing, or maybe this time will be different. And so she found him around lots of other people. You could see him in a crowded marketplace, people all around him following close. And she worked her way through the crowd. She was not supposed to be doing that, but she did. She worked her way through the crowd, came up behind him, and it says in verse 44 that she touched the hem, the fringe of his garment, and she was immediately healed. And if the story ended right there, it would be great. It would be a great story, but it goes on, and I love this part. It says in verse 43, you can picture Jesus whirling around, and he said, "Who was it that touched me?" And Jesus knew, he felt the power go out of him, and he knew that he had healed someone. And instead of just letting her, she'd been used to hiding. She was for years and years and years, but instead of letting her do that, Jesus called her out. Who was it that touched me? And I love that, because here she had been so lonely. And Jesus not only knew that she was sick and needed healing, but he knew that she was lonely. And he says to her in verse 45, "Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace." And I love that part. Jesus wants us to have peace. He doesn't want us to be worried. He doesn't want us to be depressed, unhappy, anxious. He doesn't want us to be just completely negative. Of course, it's understandable in a time like this where we're going to have thoughts like that, but we don't have to let them take over our lives and affect who we are and affect our relationships. And Jesus wants more for us than that. He wants us to have peace during this time. And so I wanted to leave with that thought and that story about the woman, because that's the closest situation I could find in the Bible with what's going on in our world right now. And I just want to encourage you, when we come to God, he will not reproach us, not to judge us, but he will embrace us. And he wants us to be healed and happy and healthy. And so I hope for you, I hope you have a great week. And hope you also stay happy and healthy. Thank you so much for listening.